Well, I'd like to use this design to provide some tips for plotting a design such as this at very high resolution and to a fixed scale, for example 1/192. So it's an example from the US. The model space tab down here is activated, so we're in model space, and that's where everything is drawn full size. But when we want to print, and that's what we want to do now, we need to move to a layout page. I'll switch to one referred to as landscape plan architectural C. I think it's important to edit those tabs to give a meaningful name to it. So this is going to be an architectural C size sheet. Later we might even return to that and add a measurement of the plotting scale. So we're now in layout space. Notice that if I move into this area here and select, that is a floating viewport, as is the larger floating viewport here. So we have two floating viewports. Notice they're on their own layer, a viewports layer. And it's very important, I think, to set your drawing up in that way so that we can see the viewports sitting there and we can set scale. If I select this one here, notice that the view scale is 0.63, we'll come to that in a moment, and it's a fixed scale. So we'll turn that off to no just for the moment, and we'll double click just inside, I'll zoom out a little, just inside that larger floating viewport. We'll double click in there and we'll just move a little bit out. Notice that the plant schedule is outside, that's in the smaller of the two floating viewports, and then we'll say display that one on the layout. A quick way to get yourself away from that dotted line is just position the mouse just inside and double click, and it goes back to the normal setting. So once we've done all of that and we pick the larger of the two floating viewports, fixed scale is off, and now the view scale is 0.643. So what we want to do is set that to a fixed scale. Now you can play around very easily with that and just experiment. If I go to modify and set a fixed scale in layout, which is what we want to do, we're asked to select a viewport and we'll pick it just above the title block there. And notice down in the command area, we're asked to select a mode of the scale, metric or imperial, or in this case it's going to be imperial. And here you are presented with a range of available scales. So if we say, let's say 1/128, and the reason to have these are fixed scales that meet a drafting standard in the US. We have a similar set of fixed scales in the metric environment, 1/20, 1/50, 1/100, 1/200, and so on. So we've selected 1/128, and what I hope you'll see is a change in the magnification of the view in that major viewport. So we'll hit enter, and you can see we're zoomed in. So our scale is not quite right. Let's right click and repeat set fixed scale. Let's pick the very same viewport again and go to Imperial, and we just try 1/128. So we'll go 1/192 and hit enter. If we escape from there and zoom extents, we now have the scale set and the major landscape plan is positioned correctly on the sheet, and this other viewport holds or is a view into the plant schedule. So if I did the same again, and I like to leave one crossing the other so I can pick it easily, double click it here, and you can see I can do a little bit of fine adjustment there. Let's just experiment and display it on the layer. I'll do that same trick again. You can select it by crossing and deselect, but that now gives me a nice layout, and we can deal with it. If for the sake of argument, let me zoom in, and I'm getting distracted, we could dive in there by going back to modelspace. That's a block, and we can edit that block, and we want a larger typeface there. It's currently 1.0, so let's push it to 1.5, and the height of text jumps up, and we close the block editor and then jump back where we were, and now we've got a nicer looking heading. So zoom out and zoom extents. So at this stage we don't want to print those floating viewports. If you needed to see them, they're on a layer called viewports, as we see over here. You could put them, you don't want to turn them off because you lose what you've got in there. You could make them white, or we could go here, go to the viewports layer, and if I widen that layer manager, we could click here and make that a non-printing layer. I haven't done this for a long time. I'm wondering whether we'll actually get to see anything in those. So just for the moment, we can do that. Let's do a very quick test. We're still not at the stage of printing a very high resolution view of this design. The quickest way to check things is to go save as a PDF. We'll go window it and a maximum. So, and we'll be asked for the first corner of our print. I'll center it. I'll pick a corner here, and I'll come down to there, and we'll overtype save as PDF, and that's the save as command being used, and that will pop up in a moment a print. And here we are. So in fact we still see that viewport setting. So despite saying no printing, that's not going to work well for us. So the easiest and fastest way to fix that is to go over here, select one viewport and the other, and we'll make them color 255. White on a white background won't show. We need to remember to go back to our layers, go down to viewports and change that to printing. So now we're in a position to go ahead and move to printing this one at high resolution. Well, I've returned to our test plot, which you remember was formed by file and save as PDF, and I've just used Acrobat Reader, and I've used the plus sign there to zoom in on an area, just checking that things look reasonable, and for many intents and purposes that's adequate for the client. But let's imagine this client wants a high resolution print with very finely drawn symbols and so on. So let's see, and they want it at a fixed scale on a fixed size sheet, a standard size sheet. So let's see how we go ahead and do that. Well, before we proceed, we mentioned earlier that we might rename one of these tabs. So I'll go to the Layouts Manager, and whoops, let me go home. It's a Landscape Plan Architectural C. I'll move to the end, and 1-192 scale. May seem pedantic, but there can be no confusion any longer if I landscape plan with a custom sheet. That tells me it's a custom size piece of paper. This time it's nicely labelled. So rather than that quick method of doing things, and after updating everything in the title block, 1 to 192, the date created and so on, the date the last edit was done, we'll zoom extents, and this time instead of just saving as, which was quick, we're going to go File and Print. We need to set our print device. We're going to use a phantom printer, the BullZip printer. The reason for choosing that one is going to pop up the final PDF at the end of the proceedings. Notice that scale is set 1=1 because we want to print to scale, and we can change here and go to properties. So it's an architectural C sheet in landscape. Well, if we go to properties here and then advanced, we can check we've got print quality here at 1200 dots per inch. We could push it to 2400. I think that's a bit of an overkill. 1200 is going to be enough, I think, for most purposes. So we'll OK that, and we'll say, having checked everything, we can say OK. OK again, and that print is being generated. And it can be moderately slow, depends on your computer and on the size of the drawing itself. This is quite a large drawing with a lot of detail. The file has been generated. It's going to my desktop, just called gCADPlus drawing. But I want to call it gCADPlus drawing print BullZip 1-192, and we'll save it. Notice that you can merge individual PDF files using this printer, and that's very handy for printing a whole range of sheets showing front entrance, rear, pool area and so on. So that's now being saved, and if I have BullZip correctly configured, it should pop up a finished PDF. I get a message on the bottom of the screen that it's been created and created on the desktop. So I had thought I had correctly set that one, but never mind. We'll go to my user area. And we'll go to the desktop. And we should see, there we are, gCADPlus BullZip print. So we can open it. I'll open Acrobat Reader. I'll get rid of this one here. There is a shortcut to print just on the one screen. Not quite sure what it is, but let's go in and zoom in. And what we're hoping to see now is some very high resolution symbols and some good looking text, and I'm quite happy with that. That has done an excellent job, I think. I think it was Control V. Control. There is a, I don't want to insert text, no. My apologies, I can't remember the tool to go full screen just to get an idea of what it will look like. But I'm happy with that. It's even showing the shading around these symbols. So that's how you print to a true PDF file at a fixed scale accurately. The principles are exactly the same when you're working in the metric area.